And we're live. So, hello, everyone who's watching, all two of you.
Speak to us. Well, we know one of the people watching has had to wander off for a little bit.
Yeah.
But Dave, if you've watched the beginning of this again, Dave, you're supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And I don't know who the other person is watching, but thank you for coming and watching, because it's dreadful when we're just talking to ourselves.
Yeah. So,
Dave's back. Hi, Dave. I was only just talking about you. Your ears must be bleeding. I completely failed to go yet. Damn it, we were delaying till you got back.
Yeah.
Oh, your partner's listening. That's who the other person is. Oh, so there's only 3 houses where this stream is at.
Yeah.
And Raven. Hey, Raven. Woo.
Woo.
Hi, Raven. Love ya.
Hello, Raven.
Oh, kick Jay's ass and tell him to join us.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Jay wants me to do a Lord of the Rings.
So he should be in here. There's no excuse. I don't care if he's tired. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
Damn it. Lazy bug. Wake him up. He wanted to see this.
Yeah.
He's shaking me. Yeah. That stream's on.
Yeah. So anyways, you know, I was planning to do like a kind of video on the themes of Lord of the Rings for, for September, because I do lit month.
Yeah, you should. Yes, you definitely should, Raven. He was insistent on this video. He should watch it. At least watch it.
Yeah.
Live.
But, then Christopher Tolkien, who had, basically been working tirelessly.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. To, preserve and make sure what his father had written got out.
And originally complete.
Yeah. Yeah, like we wouldn't have the Silmarillion if it weren't for Christopher.
Yeah.
And actually he did help edit The Lord of the Rings when it was, while he was serving in World War II.
Yeah. He also helped with the movies. And with editing the screenplays and that. So
yeah, he basically made it his life work to be like the guardian of the lore.
Yeah.
And
he's the guardian of the ring.
Yeah. So with him having died on Wednesday, I figured it'd be best to do, a tribute. And a stream's kind of easier to put together than it is to do a full edited video.
Although, to be honest, it's not always as coherent.
Yeah. So, but Jen, how familiar are you with Tolkien's works?
Okay. I'm very familiar with the movies, having watched them all. I remember the old cartoon series that they did of it as well. Not very well, I'll admit. I was quite young when it came out. So,
yeah, well, Lord is included in Tolkien, and it is, in fact, the vast majority of Tolkien. I just wanted to expand it a little more.
Yeah. I've read The Hobbit, and I bought and tried reading Lord of the Rings, but with my dyslexia, I really struggled to read it, even though I'd already seen the movies. So it is something I'll have to have another attempt at some point. Yeah. But yeah, I struggled. I had same problem trying to read Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. It just took me so long to start to get reading on it, with how complex the plots are, and then my dyslexia on top. It was just So, there's things like that with me when I'm trying to read the novels. But I've got a good background in most of it because, like I said, my brother is a big Tolkien fan, and he's read everything, and we often talk about this stuff, especially when you're a gamer, when you play D&D or anything like that. I mean, all the lore is based out of stuff Tolkien wrote.
Well, yeah, Tolkien essentially created the bedrock for the high fantasy genre as we know it today.
Yeah. So, and that bedrock is what Dungeons and Dragons was built on.
Yeah.
It was people reading Tolkien who wanted to, in some way, experience that other than to have it leap off the pages at them, is what got Dungeons and Dragons going. It's what inspired Gary Gygax.
Well, and it's actually Christopher's fault that that in D&D they're called halflings and not hobbits.
Is that right? Because said they were
well, I don't know if it was specifically Christopher, but yeah, the Tolkien estate hit Wizards with a cease and desist.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So originally in D&D they were called hobbits.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but Tolkien hit them with, the Tolkien estate hit them with a cease and desist, and so now they're called halflings.
And they get called halflings in everything else that isn't Tolkien.
Yeah.
Because of that, yeah.
Yeah. But for me, I've read The Hobbit multiple times. I've read the Silmarillion.
That's a hard slog too.
I haven't actually read all the way through The Lord of the Rings. The only book I made it all the way through was The Two Towers, but that was more an issue of I'd pick it up, I'd read it, and then I'd like get most of the way through, and then I'd lose the book. Then I'd have to start.
Is Tom Bombadil in the Silmarillion, or is that?
No, he's just in the Fellowship.
He's just in the Fellowship. Because I thought there was something else that had him in it.
As far as I'm aware, he's only ever encountered, and he's only referenced in the Fellowship.
Okay. Yeah.
Frodo, Merry, and Pippin and Sam encounter him as they're escaping the Shire.
Yeah.
And during
you could just stay here, nothing can get in here.
and then during the Council of Elrond, Gandalf mentions how Tom Bombadil is like as old as the earth, and gives some hints at further lore, but he's just there.
Yeah, he's just there. Yeah, he's basically one of the original godlikes.
Yeah. He isn't specifically mentioned as one of the Valor, though.
No, but he's definitely he's definitely old and powerful.
Yeah, he's old and powerful, and that's all we really know. The fan theory that I'm most convinced of is that he is the physical embodiment of the universe.
Oh, okay.
Like, he is the physical embodiment of the song that the Valar sang when Earth was created.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's not a bad fan theory.
Tolkien lore goes deep once you
get into it, yeah.
Yeah. It's like most people just like know the Lord of the Rings, or they know the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, and most of those people, don't even look at the appendices. And yeah, Tolkien did like an insane amount of world building. or rather, the Tolkiens did an insane amount of world building because, the way I understand it, Tolkien wrote out his notes.
Yeah.
And was getting ready to, do like the Silmarillion before he died. And then Christopher took those notes, compiled them, and made them something coherent.
Yeah. Yeah, he basically took his dad's notes and wrote the book that his dad, as close as you could have expected to what his dad would have written.
Well, yeah, and then, he did he wrote like the complete history of Middle Earth series where he just here's all my dad's notes. You can see that I didn't really add anything myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It would have been interesting if he'd actually written a bit more than that. I think he could have from his dad's notes quite easily.
Yeah.
But that's fine. They've more or less finished the stories, although it would have been interesting to have a more prequel.
Oh, yeah.
Go back to the original and get all the in-depth of the
Well, I mean, that's
original fights.
What the Silmarillion is.
Yeah.
And I think there were a few like stories from the Silmarillion that were kind of expanded into their own books later, like the Children of Hurin and the and the Lay of Beleriand, which were like chapters and sections of the Silmarillion that just kind of got taken out and made into their own books later on.
Oh, okay. The first appearance of Tom Bombadil was in a poem that Tolkien wrote in 1934 called The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. So Tom Bombadil already existed in his literary works. Before that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the expanded poetry book, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil and Other Verses, I thought there was something about Tom Bombadil that was separate from the... Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a whole heap of other verses that talk about Tom Bombadil and what he does and stuff. So, so what is it? Yeah, it's because there's two characters. There's a female character that's equivalent to Tom Bombadil as well, and they're considered enigmas within the universe.
Yeah, Goldberry.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So.
So the frequent explanation is they are both minor Maya.
Yeah, that's one theory, is that they're minor Maiar.
Yeah, Maya.
Which is what Gandalf is. Yeah.
Yeah, so a similar level sort of being to Gandalf, but quite obviously more powerful than Gandalf. Because no one can enter Tom Bombadil's area without him.
Yeah, that's why very much.
No, the Adventures of Tom Bombadil is a separate book, nerdy. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. That's why I very much hold to the theory that, Tom Bombadil is a physical embodiment of the Song of the Ainur.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, either way, he's obviously like a god of a godlike creature in some respect. And to the point that, nothing Sauron could do was ever going to touch Tom Bombadil.
Yeah. And
Gandalf versus Tom, I think Gandalf would get his ass handed to him. Especially if he was in Tom's realm.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom's basically omnipotent in his realm, isn't he? So outside of his realm, he's probably more like Gandalf. So if it was outside, they'd probably be evenly matched. But inside his realm.
And the thing is, Gandalf is essentially evenly matched with a Balrog. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, that being said, I don't really think Tom Bombadil would fight. I think he'd just kind of do his Tom Bombadil things while Gandalf tried to attack.
And I don't see that Gandalf
Like
would attack
nothing
him
would hit
either.
him.
So why would Gandalf attack him? Tom's not
Yeah.
going to attack Gandalf. Why would Gandalf attack him?
Yeah.
That
I
fight
guess
would be
it'd
like,
more like, Saruman versus Tom Bombadil fight. And
and if that's in Tom's domain, Tom would just go, sit down, have a cuppa.
yeah.
And Sauron would. He just would. If he's in the domain outside, it'd be more evenly matched. But
Yeah.
Hey, Mega Nuts.
Yeah, but I very much hold the opinion that like it wouldn't really be much of a fight, but not because one would curb stomp the other. It'd be more like nothing would affect Tom Bombadil and he wouldn't fight.
Or he'd just go, no, out of my realm. And that's it. That'd be out of his realm and they wouldn't be able to get back in.
Yeah.
They just set up an exclusion zone, Doctor Who style.
Yeah. But also, speaking of godlike figures, when you get into the Silmarillion, you very much realize that how much of the lore of Middle-earth was influenced by Tolkien's Catholicism.
Oh, okay.
Because what we get in the beginning is Eru Ilúvatar, the one god figure, and the Ainur, or aka the Valar, are more like archangel type figures.
Yeah,
who
definitely.
help Eru sing the world into existence, and you have Melkor as the Lucifer Satan figure corrupting the song. And that's actually a very big theme in Tolkien's works. It's especially in the Lord of the Rings, is the corrupting influence of evil. It's where
it's surreptitious.
Yeah, evil cannot, like in Tolkien's works, evil cannot create of its own. It can only corrupt what has already been created.
Yeah. Although, given that evil actually created the rings and then corrupted them.
Actually, well, yeah, but ring making was already a thing.
Oh no, didn't. Oh.
Well, okay.
No, he did create the rings, didn't he? Yeah.
So what happened was, after Melkor.
Now I'm trying to remember my lore.
Yeah. After Melkor got locked away for eternity. Yeah. For eternity outside of reality. Sauron took over as the new big bad because he was Melkor's top lieutenant.
Yeah.
And Sauron is a lot trickier. He's a lot less, like Melkor is like a primal force of evil.
Yeah.
And Sauron is very much, he's a conniving trickster figure. He would be a trickster god in,
and he's a god level down, so he's not.
Oh yeah.
I mean, whereas Melkor is like the evil god at the beginning that's all powerful, whereas
Melkor is basically evil incarnate.
Whereas Sauron is just
is a tempter and
he's the evil god's archangel or archdemon. Yeah.
So and
so technically at a similar power level to Gandalf.
Yeah.
Gandalf the White.
Yeah.
No, not Gandalf the Grey.
So, yes. So anyways, Sauron goes to the elves to Celebrimbor, and under the guise of this persona he's made for himself named Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. And so he goes to Celebrimbor and he's like, "Hey, I've got this great idea. Let's make these magic rings." And so he and Celebrimbor make the 3 rings, 3 rings for the elves, 3 rings for kings.
7 rings for men. Isn't that 7? 7? Yeah.
So like one goes to Celebrimbor himself. One ends up with Galadriel, and one actually ends up with Gandalf down the road. But the thing is, because the elves, the elves are a bit too mentally linked with the world. They're too mentally strong.
7 for the dwarves, 9 for the men. That's right.
Yeah,
3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarves, 9 for the men.
Yeah, so the elves weren't really able to be corrupted by these rings, and it could have been because of Celebrimbor, because those were the ones that Celebrimbor made, or it could just be because the elves are less corruptible.
Oh, I've lost track. What happened to the dwarven rings?
So then he goes to the dwarves and he makes the rings for the dwarves. And it somewhat works on the dwarves a bit in that it makes them more ambitious. It makes them delve too deeply and too greedily.
That's why they end up with the Balrog.
Well, yeah, and with the dragon problem and the lump.
Yeah, the dragon problem with Smaug.
Yeah, they basically amass vast amounts of wealth and then attract dragons and then get eaten by dragons, and so that didn't work out. So what effectively happens to their rings, though? They're just kind of there and towards. Yeah, they're just kind of lost. Yeah. And then he makes the rings for the men, the 9 men, and since they value their lives the most because men are mortal, it stretches their lives. It makes them live longer, and they eventually become the ring race.
Yeah. The Nazgul. No, Nazgul.
Nazgul.
Yeah, Nazgul.
Which is literally black speech for ring wraith.
Yeah.
Because Tolkien was a linguist, and he did a lot of his world building on a linguistic level.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he made the One Ring to tie all the rings together and basically serve as like the controller ring. The One Ring to rule them all.
One ring to bind them.
Yeah.
No, find
one ring to bring them all, and
the darkness bind them.
The land of Mordor where shadows lie.
Right.
And
my precious.
Precious.
Oh, you do that so well.
Oh, yes. It does an excellent Smiggles voice, Precious.
I love it.
Yeah, I can't do it too much because it'll wreck my voice, but yeah, I can do a little bit here and there.
You so have to do your thing for Ken Ham using that. Holding on to his Bible. My precious.
Precious Genesis. The Father from us, we has no foundations.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And of course, Tolkien, being a linguist, actually did a translation of Beowulf.
Oh yeah.
And he actually lifted a lot of his stuff from Anglo-Saxon poetry and the sagas. And
yeah.
and like for instance, a lot of the dwarves in The Hobbit. Hold on. Nerdy, are you talking about numerology? Because I'm sure we'll eventually get to the fall of Numenor, possibly. But
Yeah.
so a lot of the dwarves' names in The Hobbit are actually like straight up lifted from Beowulf, and the ending, well, not quite the ending, but the climax of the quest to the Lonely Mountain, where Smaug goes crazy and destroys Lake Town. That's actually lifted pretty much from Beowulf. Because in Beowulf, there's, when Beowulf has been a king for several years, this cupbearer steals something from a dragon, from a dragon's hoard, and a dragon goes rampaging across the land, and Beowulf goes to fight it and kills the dragon and dies in the process. Well, Tolkien basically took that and wrote it from the cupbearer's perspective. Where Bilbo sneaks in, has this chat with Smaug, and then, steals something from the hoard, and Smaug,
which ends up being the One Ring. And you've got to think that Gandalf realized what the ring was as soon as Bilbo stole it.
Actually, not so much. Like he was suspicious of it, and but he went off and did a bunch of research to confirm it. That's why.
Yeah, you see that in the movie.
Well, yeah, and that's actually how it is in the books. Is he explains to Frodo that he did research. Like at first he thought it was just like a magic ring, and then he did the research and he's like, no, this is the One Ring. Though, speaking of Bilbo picking up the One Ring and the riddles in the dark, so while most people see The Hobbit as a prequel, it was actually written first. But the thing is, the original version of The Hobbit had Gollum just giving up the ring to Bilbo for riddle contest. And then Tolkien went and wrote The Lord of the Rings and realized that's a major plot problem. So what he did was he made a second revised edition of The Hobbit, and in the preface he said he basically blamed it on Bilbo. Like he basically said, that the information that he had been
handed on from Bilbo had been inaccurate. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, he turned, because kind of part of the framing device of The Hobbit is, or part of like the epilogue of The Hobbit is, Bilbo returns home and writes about all of his adventures in a book, which he calls There and Back Again.
There and Back Again, yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of like why I'm kind of upset that it was never used as a title in one of the Hobbit movies. I mean, that's the least of my issues with the Hobbit movies, but so anyways, so yeah, Tolkien basically put it on Bilbo, saying Bilbo was an unreliable narrator. And and rewrote the riddles in the dark scene to where it was, instead of I will give you something precious, it's if you lose, I'll eat you. If you win, I'll show you a way out.
Yeah.
And yes, made Gollum a very sore loser, though technically Bilbo did technically cheat, because what is in my pocket isn't technically a riddle.
You have to give us 3 guesses.
Yeah.
I wonder if they kind of based Yoda's speech patterns on Gollum.
No, I doubt it.
No.
Yoda. I think Yoda was more largely based off like the Eastern mystic who talks in who talks in riddles. Like come to my domain. You have.
Yeah, because that's very much what Star Wars is. It's it's a retelling of any of the young heroes' stories from back then. I'm not trying to remember what the one they mainly point to, but it's eluding me at the moment. The hero's journey, is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah. And of course, Joseph Campbell comes up when we're talking about Lord of the Rings, because Joseph Campbell comes up anytime we talk about literature. Joseph Campbell.
I mean, we talk of Tolkien as the father of this sort of things, but if you're talking about that's high fantasy, but if you're talking fantasy, you've got to go back to this sort of thing. Well, I suppose you can go back to the Bible. Fantasy.
Well, the thing is, so Joseph Campbell was like a sociologist, I think. But he was an academic, and he was like studying mythologies around the world, and he realized that hey, a lot of the stories we tell have these like
the same things,
have these patterns. So
archetypes
so we mapped out the hero's journey, and that pretty much at least every Western, for a large part, a lot of Western stories follow, and even a lot of Eastern stories as well, is where there's
it's a fairly easy trope to do.
Yeah.
You start out with a difficulty, with something that's horribly happening. You have a loss at the thing, then you have the struggle to become better, and then a win at the end.
Yeah, you have a call to adventure. Like for instance, a group of dwarves showing up unexpectedly at your inn. And then you have answering the call to adventure, and you go out into the wastes, and then you have
and usually as part of answering the call of adventure, there's a reluctance to do it.
Yes, which there very much was with Bilbo
and Luke.
Yeah, and actually, it's not so much in the movies, but in the books it is with Frodo as well, as it takes him like a year to actually leave the Shire.
Yeah.
Like, if I remember right, it describes him like going out a bit and then just going back, and then going out a bit further and then just going back, and then he finally leaves.
Yeah, doesn't he eventually only go because he encounters one of the Nazgul?
I'm very, very rough on how.
There's something that actually happens that pushes him over the edge.
Yeah.
So.
And then,
and I mean, he doesn't even really come across as the hero. To my mind, the hero of it is Sam.
Oh yeah,
Sam's the hero. He has the most personal growth. He actually basically does the hero's thing throughout the entire thing. He grows. He faces up to his fears.
Frodo's just the guy with the MacGuffin.
He's the guy. He's the guy with the ring. He's the comedy support.
I wouldn't say.
No, I don't know this comedy,
No,
but he's the support.
Merry and Pippin are the
Pippin of the comedy. But he is, I mean, Frodo really is just another support character to Sam.
Yeah.
To my mind, we go Frodo, Sam. Sam does all the hard shit.
Yeah.
Sam has the most personal growth. Sam comes back a hero. I would not call Frodo a hero from the end of it. He was reluctant, and he was very ready to give it up.
Well, yeah, and even at the end, Frodo comes back very much a broken character.
Yeah. Whereas Sam comes back stronger and better.
Which is part of the reason why he and Bilbo actually got to go with the elves to the Silver Shores.
Yeah.
Or, to Valinor.
Yeah, because it wrecked them. Whereas Sam came back a hero and a stronger person for it.
Yeah, and he actually became like the mayor of the Shire.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a hero in Lord of the Rings, the hero is Sam.
One could the hero for the for the
hobbits
bearers, the hero for the ring bearers portion is Sam.
Is Sam. Oh yeah, no, definitely. If you're looking in the wars and that, you're looking towards Aragorn and
Aragorn also has very much of a hero's journey where he's the rightful heir that returns to his rightful throne,
and that really doesn't want it to start off with or anything, but he grows.
Once again, the call to, we're going to call the call to adventure, the call to make his kingdom right, and he's very much begins the work refusing the call to adventure.
I'd even say Boromir follows a bit of that as well.
Oh yeah, before he has his ultimate redemption, sacrificing his life to.
Yes, I know he surrenders his life for it, but I mean, ultimately he starts out as a character of questionable motives.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, he's willing to lay down his life to make sure that the right things happen.
Yeah, because at the beginning, he just sees the ring as a weapon.
Yeah, and we should use this. And
yeah,
in the end,
he lusts for the power. I mean, arguably for the right reasons, to help his people, but that he would, he is very much easily corrupted by the ring because he lusts after that power that the ring promises. Yeah. And in Tolkien, and in oh yes, we this is an excellent Smeagol's voice.
Yeah, you would need a drink after that.
Yeah.
Please do the Ken Ham thing for your Ken Ham video. That would just be awesome.
I might.
It would be even funnier if you could find a Gollum mask or something. Is that it?
So, anyways, and in Tolkien's works, it's very, desire brings evil, which is a very, which once again goes back to his Catholicism. It seems to me to be a very Catholic outlook. It's that it's the human desires that bring that make you fall into evil, that make you sin. But and so which kind of makes it funny how Pentecost, evangelicals in the 70s actually burned copies of the Lord of the Rings for being evil.
Yeah, when it was written by a Catholic.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, isn't that always the same with these sort of things? A lot of these stories, people complained about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and that was written as Christian allegory. For goodness sake.
It is. It was the most Christian-y allegory to ever Christian allegory since since John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah.
But and the thing is, even in Tolkien's, even in the Lord of the Rings, where there is, yes, there is magic, but the only ones who really do magic are the elves, which are written as being, in the lore, are tied to the world and a part of the world.
Well, if you were going to compare that to
wizards, which are actually angelic beings.
Yeah, they're angels, so they would have magic. And I tend to see the elves are more like, in that sense, elves are probably more like Nephilim.
Well, technically, you could see elves as the pre-fall. You could technically suppose elves are some sort of pre-fallen humans.
Yeah.
Because they live forever. And the thing is, the gift to men is the gift of mortality. The fact that they can die and essentially go to heaven, while the elves just go to Valinor and stay in Valinor after they die. Now the dwarves are a special case. Because they weren't directly created by Eru Ilúvatar.
Oh, okay.
They were craft. So, Aule the Smith and his wife, I think it was Vanya, the nature goddess or the nature archangel. So she made the Ents to. No, okay, hold on. I'm getting things backwards. So, Aule is saw all this life coming forth, and he's like, I want to make life myself. So he makes the dwarves. And this is before the elves actually were actually created, actually came into being. And
so the dwarves are an older race.
Technically, I'm getting to that. So, Manwë, the head archangel, second only to Eru, the king of the Valar, it's like, you done fucked up, because who are we to create? Only Eru is allowed to create. And then, but Eru took pity on the dwarves, because Aule was like, yeah, you're right. I need to repent and destroy my creations. And the dwarves started, groveling essentially. And Eru took pity on them, and he's like, okay, I'll bring them in as adopted. But we're gonna put them to sleep and have them wake up after the elves. And that's actually kind of the root cause for the dwarf elf conflict, is because the elves are the dwarves are kind of like the stepbrothers of the elves and men, and by extension hobbits, because hobbits are closely related to humans. And that's kind of where that contention started. It was made worse a lot later, when elves were when the dwarves first woke up, and the elves didn't realize that the dwarves were sapient beings and were hunting them for sport.
Oh,
So yeah, but once again, that's all in that's all in the Silmarillion.
which I haven't read.
Yeah.
So that's actually interesting.
So let me give you some
Uh,
education.
I like what Amiga Nut says. The Bible thumpers don't like when better fiction comes out. Well, it is. Lord of the Rings is a lot better version of fiction because it actually makes sense all the way through and doesn't contradict itself. Well, apart from the Hobbits bit where a revision had to be made.
Yeah, but that was also explained away by Bilbo being an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Tolkien set out, well, specifically with the Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit was started as bedtime stories that he told his children.
Yeah.
And then Christopher was like, you said Thorin had was Christopher was correcting him on nitty-gritty little details. And so he's like, okay, screw it, I'll write it down so I can keep everything straight. If it weren't for Christopher, we might not have actually had The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But so I lost
my dad used to do that when all of us kids were little. He actually used to write all his own stories. He had a fantasy world which involved fairies and fairy circles and things like that. And when he got later in life, he actually wrote some of them down. And my mum has a book with them in.
But
it'll never get published. But it's just that thing of parents doing something for their kids and that evolves into something.
Yeah.
Bigger.
And but okay, so now I remember. So when he was going out to do, when he was setting out to write The Lord of the Rings, he wanted to make a mythic history for England.
Yeah.
He looked and he saw the Greeks and the Romans had their own, the Greeks and Italians, from Rome had their own mythic histories, and he saw that the Norse, that the Danish, Norwegian countries had their own mythic histories with the Viking sagas. And he's like, England doesn't, England got the short end of the stick, so I'm gonna make a mythic history for England. And in one respect, he kind of failed when he set out to do that, but in another, then he ended up setting the bedrock of what epic fantasy is supposed to be.
Yeah, so he had a huge success, really.
Yeah. He was setting out to make a mythology for Britain, and in my opinion, Rowling actually got it closer with Harry Potter. Because the thing is, mythologies are contemporary to the culture that, it seems to me that mythologies are contemporary to the culture that originates them. So if we have anything like a modern mythology, it'd probably be something like comic books or
definitely
Harry Potter.
Yeah, maybe not Harry Potter.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't object to Harry Potter. I object to the author, but I don't object to Harry Potter itself. But there are definite narrative problems in Harry Potter as well.
Oh yeah.
Lots and lots of narrative problems in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That push it away from being the sort of thing that. Yeah, I get the thing that it needs to be centralized into the culture that's there, but it doesn't have that epic sort of feel. Have you read or at least seen the tale of Norrell, Mr. Norrell, and Doctor. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
No, I haven't.
It's a.
I think I've heard.
Susanna Clarke wrote the book. And the BBC made a TV series of of part of the first book, but not all of. Well, no, there is only one book. It's just split into three parts. So it's a bloody big book. So they did most of the first and second parts and haven't done any. They decided just to stop it there and not do the rest. But that basically
kind of like
goes
the Lord of the Rings, because that was written as one book, but then the publisher was like, "Yeah, this is way too big for the public. Maybe you should split it up. Trilogy."
Yeah. So with hers, basically she rewrites the concept of England to say that there was magic in England and there was these things, but it sort of got diluted and lost over time. But there were still people who were trying to cling to having it, and there were all these groups who got together that called themselves magicians but couldn't do any magic and traded spells with each other that they couldn't make work, and they were trying to find old magic books. And Strange is trying to is one of these people who thinks there could be something in it and everything. So he's going to these meetings and trying to find out if these spells things can work and everything. And then he hears about this Mr. Norrell. There's been some rumors that he did something with magic at some point. Anyway, the group that he's with try to harass Norrell to join their group. And he just doesn't want to. So, but they keep harassing him and everything. And Strange, in the end, decides he's not interested in that and wanders away from it. Doesn't want to be involved. And but the group keep harassing, and so Norrell says he'll meet them in this church. No, it's not church. It's a museum. Where there's all these statues inside it, and they walk inside the building, and he brings every single statue to life and scares the absolutely bejeebers out of these guys.
Yeah.
And the deal is, I won't kill you if you promise never to fiddle with magic again. So he absolutely scares these people half to death. And in the end, Strange ends up figuring out that he can actually do magic, and he sort of ends up becoming Norrell's apprentice.
Yeah.
But in a strange thing between the two of them, Strange ends up being the one who does the least bad stuff. Yeah. And he ends up almost basically surpassing the guy who teaches him. Oh, and they become enemies, and then they become friends again, and they sort out stuff.
That's kind of a trope, with the students surpassing the master.
Surpassing the master, yeah. Well, I mean, Norrell is well studied. Strange's raw power. So and Norrell sees this, which is why he wants to train him, because he's like, no, this is without access to any of the
D&D terms, Norrell would be a wizard and Strange would be a sorcerer.
A sorcerer, yeah, pretty much. But there's some absolutely brilliant scenes in the book, like England's at war and stuff, and they actually don't really want to have the fight, and there's all these boats off the shore and everything, so they call Norrell and Strange to come and have a look at what's at the shore, and Norrell and Strange look at each other like, what why are we needed for this sort of thing? And and the general goes, you got to do something, this is stupid, we don't want to have this fight, we'll lose too many ships. And Norrell just ends up looking at Strange, and Strange is like, do I have to? And he goes, yeah, we'll have to do something. They won't let us leave otherwise. So he walks down to the shore, shoves his hands in the sand, and turns all this sand, well, a lot of this sand on this beach, into these horses that run out on top of the water and destroy all the ships.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, no, and it looked absolutely brilliant. And it's the way it was described in the book too, which is absolutely awesome. Yeah. So that kind of story where you've taken the history of England, because everything's shoved into things that actually happened in history. They're talking about real wars and real things that happen, but these two men get shoved into it.
Yeah.
And written as like an alternative version of history where magic maybe was a thing, but not many people could actually do it. And it was just like, it's a really, really good story. Really, really good story. And if anybody doesn't want to read the books, watch the TV series because it's brilliant. But yeah, it's a great story. Now I've sidetracked everything.
But though, centering it back onto England, actually one of my favorite Tolkien stories isn't a Middle-earth story. It's the story of Farmer Giles of Ham.
Oh yeah. I've heard of this. I haven't read it, but
it takes place in post-Roman Britain. When there are still like giants and dragons about, and it's about this crotchety old farmer who through a series of misadventures ends up actually becoming the king of England. So like first, like a giant shows up at his farm. So he shot it in the foot with a blunderbuss. And the giant, thinking he was stung by a hornet, just runs off. But he goes up to where all the monsters and dragons are and starts telling stories about how awesome the area down in England is. And so this dragon shows up. Well, meanwhile, the king here, the local petty king hears Farmer Giles' exploit with the giant and is like, here's this awesome sword that he just randomly took out of his, treasury. And it's like, in token of your great deeds. So he does, Farmer Giles, puts it on his mantelpiece, brags about it. And it turns out that the sword is like a magic dragon slaying sword. And, so the dragon starts getting near and everyone's like, hey, Farmer Giles, you're this great hero who scared off the giant. Shouldn't you do this? Shouldn't you do something about the dragon? And like this sword is like glowing brighter and brighter as the dragon gets closer. And eventually it like jumps out of its sheath and won't go back in. And he's like, and he finally goes to fight the dragon. And the sword is literally doing the fighting for him.
So he doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah, no, he doesn't want to fight the dragon, and the dragon doesn't want to fight him, but the sword is like, I want dragon blood. So he's like, and the dragon's like, okay, you know what? I've got this horde. So how about I go and get a big chunk of my horde and bring it back, and we'll call it a day. And Farmer Giles doesn't want to fight a dragon. The dragon doesn't want to fight someone with this magic sword. But he's like, so they called it a deal. The dragon, pisses off to the north and and of course didn't have any, indication, didn't have any intention on ever coming back. But the king, hears about this promise and he wants that gold. So he gets together an expedition and ropes this crotchety old farmer who wants to, doesn't want anything to do with it. and they go off to slay the dragon and take the treasure. Like all of the knights get killed, end up getting killed, except for Farmer Giles, and he's like, okay, and of course the sword won't go back in its sheath because a dragon's nearby, and it wants dragon blood, and he eventually like talks the dragon into bringing a big chunk of its hoard down with it, like on his back, and like anytime the dragon starts misbehaving, he's got the sword ready. And so like using the riches that he got from the dragon and the dragon itself, he ends up blackmailing the nobility into making him king. It's only like maybe 100 or so pages long, but it's
I'll have to have a look at that
story. It's like
that's brilliant.
It's always a good read. I think I've read it. Like the only work of Tolkien's that I've read more would probably have been The Hobbit, and that's only because I knew about The Hobbit first.
Cool.
Yeah,
there are definitely some good stories out there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
all right, so where are we next talking about then?
Yeah.
We've sidetracked ourselves completely.
Yeah, well,
no, at least you were still talking Tolkien.
Yeah. Tolkien. So I could possibly bring it back into like somewhat Christian theming in regards to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. So the fight with the Balrog on the bridge.
You shall not pass.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is I'm not sure about how Catholic exorcisms work, especially since they're in Latin and I don't speak Latin.
So SpaceX is doing its abortion test in 12 minutes. Which means these guys want to go and watch it.
Okay. Well,
we can get through this and wrap up, can't we?
Yeah. So
it's a good time.
Yeah. So the Bridge again, it's very much an exorcism. At least the way I was taught how to do exorcisms. It's Gandalf established his authority as a servant of God, and then commanded the Balrog, the powerful demon, literally one sidetrack to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. So Gandalf goes, I am a servant of the secret fire, your power shall not avail you, flame of Anduin. Shall not pass. But yeah, that's basically like follows the structure of an exorcism as I was taught how to do them. You claim your authority as a servant of God. You address you address the demon, you address the spirit, and then you command it to leave.
Before resuming.
But
I like that. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That it would be that. He's talking to a demon. He's sending it. He's trying to cast it out.
Yeah.
It wasn't a proper image of what you'd expect of a wizard fight.
Yeah. It's not. It's very much an exorcism.
Yeah. Was that interesting?
Yeah.
And then the concept that Gandalf falls and dies, but he wasn't time for him to die. He was needed.
Yeah, Gandalf is very much the Christ figure in the story. And
he's the dying and rising.
Yeah, and once again, apologies to the Oxford Seismology Department for messing with your equipment. For those of you who don't know, Tolkien is buried, or J.R.R. Tolkien is buried in Oxford. So that's why whenever I make any kind of allusions to the Lord of the Rings potentially being allegory, I always apologize to the Oxford Seismology Department.
Because he's turning over in his grave.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is obviously inspiration he took there from his Catholic roots. In as much as he took inspiration from other myths and legends around the world, he did that as well. And I mean, whilst there isn't the level of allegory there is in like Lion and the Witch in the Wardrobe, or even or even Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. The way I'd put it is, Lewis wrote allegory, Tolkien had influences.
Yeah.
And my personal theory as in regards to Tolkien and allegory is that Tolkien despised allegory because he was friends with Lewis. Because it seems to me that Lewis was like one of the people who'd try and turn anything into a Christian allegory. It seems like he was very much how I was back when I was a fundamentalist, where I'd see allegory in everything. And I can see how that would be immense.
Well, it's the same mentality that makes you see miracles in everything, isn't it? You know, I had an ex of mine who is a fundy Christian. Well, not ultra funny. She's not a young earther, but very much against evolution and stuff like that. Christian, and she decided it was a good idea to watch my videos, despite the fact that I warned her there was nothing in there that she'd enjoy.
Yeah,
and she watched my video about the Jesus hates little children.
Yeah.
And I got a text message.
Yeah.
How could you possibly think that? No, he doesn't. Okay. You realize that's not about you or your personal belief.
Yeah.
It's a statement of fundamentalism where they actually think this. You know, not necessarily about little children, but they actually, their whole dogma is what God hates or what Jesus hates.
Yeah.
You know,
and actually, as a fundamentalist, I had come up with a way to explain Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, as a Christian allegory.
Oh, wow. No, you so have to make a video about that.
Yeah, I will. I will.
Maybe we need to do Pirates of the Caribbean one of these.
Yeah. I've only seen the first 3. But anyways, go ahead, chill yourself.
Oh, yeah. Well, you guys will know me. I'm Jen from Jen's Old Corner. I do atheist content and debunking content. I put out a video tonight that is the little sciencey bit from the stream that One Ring was in the other day. The one where we ended up doing our Doctor Who thingy.
Yeah.
But where I was talking about the discoveries in science for this year, for space science. I'm also going to be doing a Flat Earther debunking video that I will have hopefully have out. I'm not sure when. It'll be within the next 24 hours, but it just depends when I get to record and edit it completely. Yeah. I've got it mostly in my head and what I want, but I've spent most of today sleeping, so at least lying down because I haven't felt well. So, and that's me. But if you're not already subbed, make sure you sub to One Ring because he's awesome.
Yes, thank you. And so this Tuesday, I've got my Dungeons and my monthly Dungeons and Divinity episode, which this month we are talking about Samson.
Are we talking or are we gaming?
Talking.
Oh.
Yeah, I've already got it filmed. I just have to edit it.
Oh, you're not streaming this one. You're just editing and
Yeah.
uploading.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And you know, I'm going to be helping Jen and Atheist Pastor and some of the other Aussies, Russ Kenham on.
Oh yes, definitely we'll be doing that.
On the 20th.
You got to do Smeagol. You have to do Smeagol. That's just awesome.
And on the 8th, I'll be talking with Neil the 604 Atheist about my deconversion. And eventually sometime I'll throw together a video about my explanation of Curse of the Black Pearl as Christopher.
No, let's do a stream.
Oh, do a stream?
Yeah, it will make it one of these.
Okay, yeah. Like call these,
because I'm enjoying these. These are good.
Yeah, call these like media discussions or something like that, and see if we can rope in more guests.
Oh, definitely. I want to have some more people on. I think what we need to do is hit up a couple of people who are into this kind of fantasy fiction stuff and see if we can get them on, even if we have to change the time zone. Time when you're doing it, just so that they're awake and available and everything.
Like, so. Literally everything. Literally, the previous two were like very short notice.
Yeah.
Oh. But something that isn't short notice because I won't be scheduling it until I can, figure out when the guests will be available is my discussion on cultural isolation from growing up in media restricted households.
That's going to be good.
Yeah. I'm already looking at the group, I'm looking at the guest list I have tentatively, and it's looking like it'll be a good discussion.
I like all the warnings in the chat. Yeah. like you guys can bugger off. We basically finished now.
Yeah. So go ahead. Do
I'll do my thing. We love you guys. Please don't choke on the selfie stick.
And remember, indoctrination is a hell of a drug. Bye.
Bye.